Good morning. I'm going to call the meeting of October 27th to order. Wednesday meeting, a little different than our normal Tuesday meetings, but thank you all for coming. So we got a good sound check. If everybody on the VTC land can mute your phones or mute your microphones, we'll be on our way here. So first item, approve the airport vouchers totaling $47,351.07.
Motion.
Thank you.
Second.
All right. Motion and second. Let's go roll call vote, please.
Hagan.
Aye.
Cosgrove.
Aye.
Capitan.
Aye.
Lynn, just in case if you're on, Tammy. I don't think she is. Lynn.
Aye. Okay. Item 2 is approve the individual vouchers, Alpha through Foxtrot. Right? Is that we had any more on the back? No. Just Alpha through Foxtrot. It's Meet and Hunt. Meet and Hunt, Northern Improvement, and Northern Improvement. The numbers for Northern Improvement were changed, and the numbers on the sheet are correct.
Motion to approve A through F as amended.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion about any of these or questions about any of them? Roll call vote.
Hagan.
Aye.
Cosgrove.
Aye.
Capitan.
Aye.
Lynn.
Aye. Okay, moving on to the back of the page. For number 3, receive letter of intent from Bucks Trading Company, LLC, to lease the space in the East Terminal.
Okay, this is space that was occupied by Meadowlark Logistics, who moved into the UPS space when they vacated. He intends to occupy that starting next week. We had the carpet replaced yesterday, or it's going to be replaced yesterday or today, and then there's some painting that's taking place to fix that for him. So your concurrence to approve their occupancy would be in order.
Okay, any questions about the lease or anything? Looks fine to me.
Motion.
Thank you.
And second.
Thank you, and roll call vote.
Hagan.
Aye.
Cosgrove.
Aye.
Capitan.
Aye.
Lynn.
Aye. Number 4, adopt a resolution of Benefit Extras Incorporated for the adoption of the premium conversion plan flex benefits.
There were lots of pieces of paper sent out to you for this. This is for the flexible benefits portion of our employees in our transition. The cost is $300 to this company to do that through, well, Pro Resources led us to this company to manage the flex benefits portion of our transition. So they require a resolution that would be passed. I know Stacy has looked through it. I don't know if there's any questions, but this would be the resolution they need on file for us to have them manage that portion of the employee benefits.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Motion to approve the adoption as the verbiage reads per their requirements.
Okay, any discussion?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or anything? Okay, roll call vote.
Hagan.
Aye.
Cosgrove.
Aye.
Capitan.
Aye.
Lynn.
Aye.
I would like to, as long as we're doing resolutions, there's one that came yesterday from MD PERS. I laid that out before you this morning. This is to approve their PEP. PEP stands for Portability Enhancement Provision. You'll see in the email that Mary Jo sent last night about 10 o'clock, the resolution format that they would require. And we believe that we're going to keep the same 457 plan that about 9 of the employees are in right now, out of the 27, through Mission Square, which was ICMA. That's through the city. And we're working with them to create our own account with Mission Square so that our employees that are in the 457 plan with them can continue that as we move forward. The North Dakota PERS also has a 457 plan, so any of our current employees that are currently participating or any new hires would have the option to pick the 457 through Mission Square and or through the state. But this is the resolution that they requested that the board pass to have that as part of the benefits for the employees.
This just keeps them in the same kind of plan that they were.
Exactly, yep,
All right.
it does. And I don't understand the intricacies of if you're contributing to a 457 plan. They explained this to us on Monday, Joan. The portion of the employer share is is put into the employee's balance, regardless whether or not it's through PERS or through another 457 plan. Does that make sense?
Well, there's no employer share on the 457.
The employee share, I'm sorry.
But if an employee contributes at least 1% of their annual salary, they can take that and as part of that, have that in that portability option.
Okay.
Okay. Any discussion on this?
This needs to be ratified when, or approved when?
Today would be appropriate, so we keep moving forward with our transition.
Would anybody like to make a motion to approve the ratification?
So move.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Any objections?
I have a question.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, can we add this to the agenda as an item to do this properly? Can we do that?
We certainly can.
I would just add it because it's a governmental benefit.
Okay. Sure.
We've got a motion, but I would say we back up a step and add it to the agenda as an item, a line item.
All right, while I write for a second here.
So
Can you
you'd
add
add
that? Just add it at the end and.
Adopt resolution of
Ratification of the 457
for
account.
ND PERS PEP.
ND first PEP. Okay. We'll do that. We'll hold off on your motion here, Mr. Captain, and we'll add it to item 10 on the bottom here. And we'll come
Sounds
back,
good.
circle back around to it. Okay, item 5, receive update from Flash Parking Equipment Installation and electric contract coordination.
Jeff is here from Mead and Hunt. They solicited as part of this parks replacement project for all of the equipment. Our responsibility was to get electrical contractors on board, and we solicited and didn't have a lot of luck getting electricians interested, but Sun Electric was the contractor that stepped up with the lowest cost to do that. And there's a meeting next week with Flash and SP Plus and the contractor to just verify where all the conduits are going to run from the entrance points to the exit plaza to get that in place so that when the Flash equipment shows up with their team, they'll be able to set everything on board, hook up the fiber, and hopefully everything will work. That's what the goal is, I guess.
Yep. What else to add?
There's a possibility. So their proposal was originally $132,000. They took off $9,000 because they were able to use a different size pull box, like an 11 by 17 pull box. So that reduced it. I believe the Sun Electric folks, once they get out and dig into it, it's a possibility they could still use some of the existing conduits that are there. So it's basically a not-to-exceed contract is what they have. So if they discover that they can use some of the existing conduits and pull the fiber through them, they will do that, which will save money even more. So
That's what the conduit's for.
that's what they have. But they don't know the condition of it. It was put in back in the 1980s.
Oh, so it might be-
we don't know.
Correct.
Sir, just a point of information, can't get in the short or long-term parking lot this morning.
She said, and we reported that to the booth, and he said they're working fine. So
Yeah.
so we'll have them
And
double
these
check.
people couldn't get in either, so it wasn't
Did
just
you go
me.
around to the west side and try to get in?
No, I didn't. I just tried that side over there. But I did have noticed there's cones in one of the lanes in both short and long-term, and they've been there for
Yeah,
over a
and that's
month.
because those can't be repaired anymore.
Oh,
They're
okay.
done. There's no parts available for those. They've exhausted all efforts to find parts, and they just aren't there. That's why getting this replaced is a very good
Paramount.
thing.
Okay.
So that's just kind of the update there, is that it is proceeding. And the other part of parking is that SP Plus and Manchester Airport Group did launch the dynamic pricing on, was it October 1st, Aaron? And they're seeing positive results in terms of increased, they do it through license plate inventories. They take the license plate inventory every night, and they're seeing vehicles parking out there that have never been here before. So it is trending in the positive direction that they anticipated that it would. So and that's all online. There's some things that Flint Communications is doing, working with Darren to highlight that when you go to the website as far as doing reservation parking and so forth. And it seems to be working well.
Okay. Mr. Engen, you wanna, since we're talking about electrical contractor stuff, do you wanna talk about, the big announcement yesterday?
Well, I brought it up earlier. Hertz is purchasing 100,000 Teslas for their fleet, which will add to, I'm sure Mead and Hunt and Terry will enjoy that, which is probably going to force electrification of some spots in our short and long-term parking as well as the rental area coming up here.
Yeah, I had a conversation with Tony Grinberg within the last month, and there is a state grant program that's targeted to put in charging stations. They're concentrating on the interstate and some of the truck stops and maybe rest stops at first, but if we want to be able to tap that because of a need, because of this announcement, I believe that we would be in line for a state grant to help cover that cost. And working with Hertz to find out where do we put those. The new Operational Readiness Center that opened up here in August, they have multiple charging stations. They kind of overdid it, but they've got a bunch of them up there. So that is something that will be.
I think we should be more than proactive about it because it's coming fast.
Right, Hertz wants to have that implemented by November, have the first Teslas available for their rentals in November. That's going to force the airports to have charging stations, and we are gonna need to be on that. It's the whispers in the wind, it's coming, so.
November of 22,
21.
21, yeah.
And then they're gonna have.
this month.
Yeah, this month, or next month, yeah. So I'm just, since we're pulling wire and all that stuff right now anyway, it probably is gonna have to be another RFP for additional charging stations, but that's gonna be different infrastructure too. Because even the level 2 chargers are 220, and you got a 50 amp fuse on them, on each of them, and if we're gonna have 5 or 6 of them, we're gonna probably have to contact Hertz and find out what their plans are gonna be and what they're gonna need. But I'm gonna guess we're gonna need 5 or 6 of those things.
Yeah.
And if they're gonna short turn those cars, they're gonna need them to charge probably even at level 3s, so which is significantly more wattage. So
Our Hertz car rental operator is Overland West out of Utah, so that's who would be in contact with us to tell us what they need.
okay, I have an electric car. Put it in my garage, and it wasn't cosmic, but it certainly wasn't easy either. So you just have to have much more capacity in your electrical grid. So anyway, so we'll take a look at that, and that's coming. So.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Maybe between Mead and Hunt and Terry, they could propose a couple locations already. Just have that in mind, and if there's logistical issues, we know that before the ground freezes up, as that's gonna happen soon.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but at the FAA conference that we just came back from last night and so forth, there was discussion amongst others. Hertz is concentrating on the CADX airports first, so this is Los Angeles, Miami, LaGuardia. They're gonna eat up 100,000 cars pretty quick there. For them to come out to this airport, Bismarck, Rapid City, Sioux Falls, the feedback that some of the smaller airports, even Des Moines got was, we're looking at the big CADX airports first.
Okay.
The bigger cities. Probably California will eat up a majority of their cars because of their pollution control requirements.
Sure.
Yes. I don't think it's coming here in November, but we want to be ready for it.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Are there whispers of the other rental car agencies purchasing electric cars? So
Enterprise.
Monkey see, monkey do, right?
Well, right, but take more of a holistic
Yeah.
approach to putting up the charging stations instead of strictly the Hertz.
Enterprise will be next.
Hertz ordered 100,000 Teslas, and then they said they're also talking to the other car manufacturers about getting other models of electric vehicles coming, and so I'm sure more is on its way. So this is the first domino to fall. So
Right.
even if we just got the wire in place and then didn't put a charging station up, it just had the area and got the circuit, the fuse boxes and all that stuff available, I'd be pretty happy with that. So at least we have a plan.
Yeah, and they have to choose a system, because there's several out there, different people getting that, so, yeah.
Okay.
I think Excel's got a lot of information as well, and I can get in touch with Grinberg to see if the compatibility that Terry brings up. This is new territory for us, so whether or not a state grant is readily available to do it, if Overland West says yes, we need them next month or next spring, we'll find out, bring that information back to you.
Okay. I believe the press announcement from Hertz said that they were looking at taking deliveries all the way to 2024. So like you said, it's not coming too far to first, but we could definitely be proactive and kind of figure out how we're going to get it done. So.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
If the state of North Dakota has grant dollars, I would have a feeling those will be gobbled up very quickly. We should get in line, at least inquire and get in line if possible. Kaz, do you know anything about that?
Nothing so far.
Put your ear to the ground, find out what you can find out.
Yeah, Grinberg knows, he's a good resource, he's on behalf of that, because they've talked with Charlie Johnson. There's a committee within the city that's been meeting about this. I think even Cass County Electric is part of it, so. North Dakota Tourism, there's a group, North Dakota DOT, and we'll get some intel from them.
Okay. Good discussion. Thank you, sir. Okay. Do we need a roll call on anything on flash parking?
No, it's just an
to
update.
receive an update. Okay. All right. Number 6. Receive an update on the airport advertising concession RFP.
So last week was our mandatory pre-proposal meeting. We had 2 firms. One showed up in person, Clear Channel Airports, which has the current contract, and Departure Media, which is from Charleston, South Carolina. They chose the virtual option because of COVID. They were the only 2 that had responded. We did have a firm from New Zealand that inquired. They were provided the Zoom instructions. They didn't respond. So it was a mandatory pre-proposal meeting, lasted about an hour, did some tours. I believe Departure Media plans on coming next week to do a tour as well. And then we have until Friday to answer any questions that they put forth to us on the RFP or the submission process, which is due on December 1st. So that just kind of gives you an update on that. So hopefully on their December 14th meeting, you'll have a recommendation to award that. The board will be the evaluators of what's presented to us, and we'll go from there. So.
Okay. All right. Number 7, receiving revised MOU with the Fargo Police Department for TSA requirement law enforcement agent services.
So I've been working with Nancy Morris. Stacy's been party to some of that. The new chief just wanted to update the exhibits that were in the previous MOU with the city of Fargo through the police department, basically updating the exhibits in terms of the cost of a police officer. There's been COLAs and other adjustments within their salaries to just basically update it and have the new chief, I guess, as a signatory on this. It's the first amendment to the original MOU. Our law enforcement officers are required by Department of Homeland Security through the TSA. We have to have an armed LEO on site at the checkpoint for all departing flights. And we do receive a partial reimbursement from Homeland Security through a TSA LEO reimbursable agreement. We've had that for a number of years. They're capped at $20 per hour. Police officers cost significantly more than that. The balance of what we do not receive through the federal grant then is charged to the airline, so we recover 100% of the cost of this. They originally had suggested that 50% of the total annual cost of a police sergeant was going to be assessed to the airport. There was similar language in the original MOU, and after discussions with Chief Todd and the staff at that time, they agreed that if the program were audited, and this is subject to the Inspector General's audit through Homeland Security, that if they were to ask the sergeant assigned to us, basically the resource officer that goes to the schools, we're going to split 50% with the school district, 50% with the airport, that if they were to ask that officer, okay, did you spend 4 hours of your day or 5 hours, whatever they're scheduled at the airport, and if the answer was no, it's kind of like, okay, what are you doing? That'd be considered revenue diversion. So they agreed that the cost of this supervisor would be reduced to 25% in this agreement here, but they'd also would keep track of other costs that we're responsible for, such as uniforms, vehicles, training, and all of those types of things to make sure that we don't exceed. We can only pay the actual cost, not an annual cost. So if Officer Bear that's out here today is spending 4 hours on the street out by West Acres doing something, we can't pay for that. We can only pay for their time that's here. That is an auditable item. So, and it's been working well. They do things through the accounting system on a monthly basis, or every payroll. Is it a monthly basis, Joe? I think we get it every month, what the cost is for each of the officers, so we can see the hours and other incidentals that they do charge us for. So
this is a not to exceed number as well.
Well, it's whatever their actual costs are. I don't anticipate their actual cost to exceed what's on here. This would be worst case scenario. Like they have the full cost of the sergeant, they've reduced that now to 25% of the cost of the sergeant instead of what it was at 50% from before. So I don't see any other problems with it. It's a pretty straightforward update. Just the only change is the cost of the police sergeant that provides the oversight and training and assistance to the airport officers. So how many officers do we have badged out here, Jordan, Darren? It changes all the time.
I'd say 30 to 40 at least.
Yeah, but there's actually 4 possibly that are out here consistently. So Bear, Siegel, Sarah's out here, and then Dietz. So there's 4 that are here pretty consistent all the time. But if they're on vacation, sick, or something happens, they've got multiple officers that are trained and badged to come out and cover the shifts. So we haven't had any issues with them showing up late, so the checkpoints not been able to open. It's worked out fine. They've done a remarkable job. So. And they interact well with the public. They run a vacuum out there once in a while. They run bins for the TSA. They go above and beyond. They've really done a good job for us. So
the 652,000, we're paying 25% of that.
No, that's the 25% only applies to the police sergeant's annual salary.
Okay.
What you have there is kind of a worst case scenario, but it's never exceeded. I mean, what's the most that we've had? I didn't bring my sheet with. It's
Average with 2 pay periods in a month is about less than 25,000.
yeah. So it runs significantly less than what they have here. This would be worst case scenario because we're covering the checkpoint. They have it figured at 18 hours per day. Some days it's less. Some days it's more. Saturdays are different. Tuesdays are different. But there are times when we do have late flights. Allegiant sometimes might not leave until 1:30 in the morning, but there's always someone here present, so it's variable.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
can I ask Stacy a question? In this agreement or revised memorandum, is there anything that excludes mutual aid? Or is inclusive of mutual aid where there would be an activity on the airport property where 10 officers would show up and we get billed for them? Or it's called out?
When there was drag racing on the airport
Yeah.
road and they crashed into the car.
Not specifically set forth here. What I'm working on with Fargo, West Fargo, Moorhead is those mutual aid agreements with both fire and police. So that, for me, in my mind, would be a separate agreement entirely.
Yeah, mutual aid is separate.
But specifically excluded in this agreement?
Yeah.
Well, it's not specifically included.
This is just for the Homeland Security requirement. I guess if that needs to be spelled out differently.
Yeah, we can certainly add
I would say it's specifically excluded and a separate agreement is the mutual aid and it's called out in this agreement.
We can sure do so.
I think in the past, anything that's happened incidentally, like if they have to arrest somebody, come out here, that's City of Fargo's
Yeah.
problem,
Yeah, so,
not the airport's.
Correct.
yeah, so I guess I have to take that back. We wouldn't have a separate mutual aid agreement with the city of Fargo because they have jurisdiction here, so
Okay.
when we've had issues out here, the police respond, and it's not as though the airport is charged.
Right, no, we wouldn't be charged.
And the reason for the question is if there was an event where the city in fact could charge for those officers based on the ratios that are brought up in this agreement. I would just like it clarified in the agreement we have a little better.
So a scenario where you have the Fargo officers here,
Yep.
and then we have an event or incident which requires further Fargo officers to come out, and that wouldn't fall under this agreement.
Correct.
Okay,
And
understood.
just clarify it that,
Mhm.
because if there were had to be 20 officers here and they said, well, we want reimbursement. I'd like it clarified, whether in this agreement or separated and then called out in something with mutual aid. Whether it's the city of Fargo, other cities surrounding us that we would have involvement with. I just wouldn't want to get a bill for $1 million after an event.
We can sure spell that out.
Okay. Any other discussion?
And this, just another question, Mr. Chairman. is
Yes.
This 83,938, that's the annual cost per officer, but not necessarily our cost, right? That's just what their salary is.
Right.
So we're paying a portion of that.
Right, because
Okay.
a lot of these officers here start their shift off airport.
Yeah.
There's a couple of exceptions, but know one of the, I think females, she's doing half of her shift off airport and half on airport, so it varies. But that would be worst case scenario, that's correct.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, Stacy, you got your marching orders, you understand? what you
Yes,
need?
sir.
Okay. Number 8, receive update regarding the revised MOU between the City of Fargo and the Municipal Airport Authority.
Over a week ago, I sent to Eric Johnson, I did distribute it to each of you, our proposed updated information to amend the MOU to adjust it concurrent with the separation with the city. I did speak briefly with Eric yesterday. He has distributed amongst those that will be reviewing it and hopes to have comments and propose further changes back to me. So that was his update. And you had responded with a minor change. Tammy Lynn did send an email last night, and I think John was copied on that, with a number of proposed changes. None of them were real substantive, and so I have those to further incorporate. And then I guess I just welcome comments from the other board members if they have any. And the idea is that we get this finalized so it can be signed and in place before that December 26th transition date. So that's all I have for an update.
Yeah, I was surprised at how much was removed. You know, there was pages and pages of lined out.
I was surprised at not how much I removed, but how much I actually put back in. The agreement is almost as long as the original one. And to address that, so much was removed just because of the number of services that the city no longer will be supplying and the airport paying for. And so that was the reason for all of that information to come out. And then the information I put in is I wanted to really further outline what the relationship is going to look like in the future. And that's where that additional language came on my end.
Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, just one comment there. I mentioned before, but it would help to track the, what we're paying as we're replacing those services. And kind of see where we were. Now, you took a lot of language out that dealt with the charges by the city. So now as we're replacing those, to kind of track and see where we are versus what the city was charging us.
I've got a running list going, so.
I guess from my perspective, it wouldn't be something included in
No,
the...
not that, just
Okay.
as we track it through.
Yeah, just keep track of running tally,
Yeah.
the differences. Okay. Roger that. Okay, item 9, airport construction and security update. Mr. Jeff, you wanna go first?
Oh, yeah, I did meet with Op here last week to, on all the concrete that's, has cracks in it, some holes in it, surrounding the SRE building. I'm sure some of you saw that when you were out there for the open house. They're working on the removal of all that. They started yesterday, I believe, and I believe their goal is to have everything put back in place by the end of the week, obviously pending weather. So that's in the works. And then on the cargo ramp, really not a whole lot to report, just finalizing quantities so we get the closeouts put together and finished, and the airport can get full replacement on the project costs.
Okay.
The only thing on construction, Stacy's been reviewing the contracts with the HVAC contractors. We awarded the bids at our last meeting for the contractors to start this pathogen mitigation project. And I don't know if you have some comments.
The contracts look good. The only change would be that I prepared that addendum that had previously been done by the city with Terry's request, and that just is the only update really that needs to be added since we have our own. Otherwise, everything looks good.
How about the Jet Center expansion and the concrete that will need to be poured for that? Have we had any discussions with bids or anything?
They haven't provided us a formal request for exactly what they need, but their project is moving forward. They did call for locates last week or whatever for that area, so I suppose they're doing soil borings or something of that nature. But I would guess that they're probably gonna break ground next spring. And then they will formalize with us how much concrete they'll need added to the east and the west portion of it. As part of that, Jeff and I are talking, and they're working on the concrete in our south general aviation area between the east terminal and, well, maybe all of it from Hangar 19 all the way up to where Bravo Taxiway is on the north end. That's in horrible condition, and we have continuous FOD issues down there. They're looking at a plan to not only replace that concrete, but probably significantly reduce the size of the concrete apron that's down there, just to bring it back within FAA standards, because we don't have commercial activity down there. The general aviation activity doesn't need all the concrete and the tie-down spaces that were there prior to accommodate the FBOs that were in that area. So that plan is in development and will be presented to us at an upcoming meeting here soon.
Yeah, there'll need to be a lot of input from the tenants down there on how it all be phased just from a affordability standpoint, but as well as just, you know, maintaining access for the GA public down there. So Lake John said we're just in the preliminary stages, just kind of coming up with concepts on how to reduce it and keep the costs down, because it's a big chunk of concrete down there.
So the storm sewer is in really bad shape. We have areas where the storm sewer pipes don't even line up. So it doesn't drain, it just sits there in the manhole because the pipes are at different elevations for whatever reason. So
it's the oldest area of the airfield. So.
Yeah, we'll look at that. I don't think there's anything else on construction. The payments that you approved for Northern Improvement today, they were the revised amounts. We're still doing 1% retainage on the project until the final quantities are finished. They get the closeout report completed and sent into the FAA. So there's still a little bit more to pay on the cargo apron. That'll be coming forth at an upcoming meeting. Some news as far as security. The federal security director informed us after, I don't know how many years have we asked for a third lane here at the airport, a third checkpoint lane, that Fargo and Minot and I think Williston and Bismarck are all getting new machines. So the machine they just installed here, that's going to be replaced. I mean, it was just literally installed months ago.
Right.
They're going to put in uniform machines at the airports, at least in North Dakota, for training purposes. So both machines here are going to be replaced. In their process, the TSA was sending 3 machines to Minot. The federal security director said he doesn't need 3 machines in Minot. He'd like to put it in Fargo. So the last time that this came up, and we worked with the TSA and their engineers, the board had engaged Terry to put together a plan. So as you go through the checkpoint, those glass walls, they were put in so they're movable. They can be moved out. And Terry had put together a plan with the TSA folks to move those walls out to accommodate the third lane. And I think there's a team coming here soon, maybe next week or the week, is it next week, Darren? With Terry and so forth, to make sure that there is adequate space to put in the 3 machines so we can have 3 processing lanes for passengers to do that. So there will be some expense to doing that, but it's something that we've asked for 5 years, 6 years. I don't know. Bismarck had 3 lanes and they have half the traffic, and it's made no sense. So it'll really help cut down our wait times here if it's properly staffed and flow people through three different lanes. So we'll get more information on that as the assessment team comes through and puts their plan together. They'll make sure that we do have enough space, and we'll have some electrical costs, of course, the cost to move the wall. And like I say, Terry had a plan put together previously to do that, and we'll pick up where we left off. So that's all I've got on that at this point. September was our 3rd busiest September on record, I believe, Darren. So we're tracking pretty well with the other airports. A lot of discussion at the conference that we just came back from last night, Monday, Tuesday, is the pilot shortage is very critical. Dozens and dozens of airports losing flights. There's plenty of airplanes, there's just not flight crews, and that's going to continue to get worse. So right now, Delta's only providing 5 flights to Minneapolis. They want to provide 7, even 8 during the peak. They're not able to do that because the regional carriers don't have crews. We're still okay with Frontier and Allegiant. American and United so far seem to be pretty stable. But the other problem that's in the room is the COVID mandates. So some of the carriers have drawn lines in the sand. United reported yesterday they're paying $1.8 million every 2 weeks to pilots who are unvaccinated but are being paid to stay at home. And we had a representative from A4A on one of the panels, Airlines for America, who's Paul McGraw, They're working constantly with the administration to try and get the mandate extended past the holidays so they can accommodate the peak rush for the holidays. Delta's backed off their mandate, Southwest backed off their mandate. I don't know about the other carriers. American is still at 30+% of their pilots that are not going to get vaccinated, which will basically shut the airline down. So we don't know where this is going to go. Another development, we were contacted by the Minot Airport on October 19th, who had received a letter. The city of Minot had received a letter from the General Services Administration informing them of a amendment that they wanted to make to the contract that they have with the Minot Airport for the space the TSA occupies within the terminal building. I believe Williston's the other airport that received the letter, and as of last week, in talking with Kyle Warner at the state, no one else in the state had received the same letter. This letter went out to basically airports around the country that have a General Services Administration contract for space for the TSA. So it's the office just down the hall here in the training room, and then they do use our break room downstairs. We haven't received a letter yet. I don't know if it's lost in the mail, if it was sent to our street address. We do check our boxes outside, but we haven't received one. So there was a call last week through the American Association of Airport Executives. They had a law firm on that AAA uses called Kaplan and Kirsch. There were 309 different people on there from over 200 some airports. The GSA has determined that airports are federal contractors. So if you're a federal contractor, you have to be vaccinated. The amendment language, and Stacy has been, I think, looking through that, at this point is a request that you sign the amendment. It's not mandatory yet, but I think there's a date of November 8th where it may change to mandatory. So we have some airports on the call, some airports I spoke with over the past couple of days who are considering terminating the lease with the General Services Administration. Basically, they'd be forced out of the building. It's a moving target. It puts a burden on employees who don't want to be vaccinated. Testing is not an option. Religious and medical exemptions can be requested, but no one has any guidance on, well, if one of our employees requests an exemption, religious or medical, who's the jury? Who decides? I know what the TSA employees are going through here. They've all been denied their medical and religious exemptions so far. I believe November 22nd is their final date to be vaccinated, but it sounds like there may be some process through the union where they can be extended for a few days. Otherwise, they face termination as well. So we could lose 15 to 25% of the workforce here overnight. And they're just, I don't know where they're going to go, where they're going to get people. It's a moving target, but so far we haven't received our notice from the GSA. This trickles down to our contractors. We do pay for the janitorial service that goes into the TSA and cleans. They dust, they vacuum, they empty the garbage. I guess we do have the right to ask if people are vaccinated. It doesn't apply to HIPAA evidently, but if you have any advice, let us know. This is a mess. That's all I can say. At this point, I don't know, the Aeronautics Commission was going to group with South Dakota, Montana, Wyoming, and other airports to find out what they were going to do in those other states. I haven't heard back from Kyle yet to see if he had any consensus there. I know Rapid City said they're not signing the amendment to Sioux Falls. Most of the airports in Montana and Wyoming, as far as I know, they're just going to push back on it, and they could send their eviction notices. So, I don't know.
My business thought is in the time that we can't, it's very difficult to find employees, and it's a very stressful situation when you threaten someone's livelihood based on a mandate that doesn't necessarily follow a lot of logic. I would say let's try to avoid it as much as possible. I think any decision that loses 25% of your workforce is a poor decision to make. So, as long as we can avoid it, let's avoid it.
Did you have anything to add based on what you looked at in this?
I don't know.
It's November 14th. Is the contract modification must be finalized by November 14th. So I don't know. I don't know what Minot's going to do. Their legal counsel, I don't think they're going to sign it, but I don't know what the ramifications are if you don't. It's an open thing, and the attorneys, they're really good firms. Stacy's familiar with them, Kaplan and Kirsch. They're on top of the aviation stuff, and I'm sure that through AAA and ACI, there'll be more information coming out as, I think there were more questions than answers on the phone call that we had last week, and we'll see. Jordan was on the line with me, and it could have went on for 3 hours, the meeting, but they ended it after an hour, so. That's all I know on that. It's an ever-changing time.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
at what point do they're pushing shift to the FAA and be grant-driven, where no money, you don't comply, you don't get money? That would be a big concern.
That would change the discussion
Yes.
significantly.
And that is the threat. That is
Yep.
the verbal threat that's out there, is they'll just withhold your federal dollars. Our congressional delegation disagrees with that because there's no federal law that says you have to be vaccinated, so I don't know what it's gonna take. Chicago was full of it yesterday, and that's all that was on the news, was the police department down there and their protests, and New York City's got, 16,300 officers that are potentially done, so what are you gonna do? You're between a rock and a hard spot, I guess.
Well, Mr. Chair,
Yep.
at the same time, messenger RNA has been being researched for 3 to 4 decades now.
Mm.
And so the technology of mRNA is very well proven. And so I don't think we shouldn't discount science as well.
Sure, I just don't want to force people into losing their job
Yeah.
if we don't, unless you're getting threatened and say, hey, if you don't comply by this deadline, you lose your stuff. I don't want to find our way into compliance when it's not necessary, when it's going to force some of our people to lose their job. And until they start threatening and say, this deadline is the line in the sand and you must comply, then we'll have a conversation about it then. But if we're just trying to find our way into compliance before it is a mandate, I think that is a mistake.
You know, I see
So,
Commissioner
just on a
Strand
total
is-
business sense.
I see
Total
Commissioner
political
Strand is
views
on,
aside.
I don't know. Commissioner Strand, I mean, how's the city handling this, or what are your conversations with? Does a 100-employee plus mandate apply?
I really can't say I'm close enough to that to know, Sean. I have not heard that we're not complying, and I have not heard conversations that are taking us down that path to what if people aren't complying. But I really can't answer it factually. You know, so I don't want to guess either.
Okay. Thank you.
So let's wait for some more information from the FAA and then make our decision from there. How about that? Any more discussion about any of that? Okay. All right, done with item 9. Number 10, let's go circle back to our adopt a resolution to approve the ratification of the 457 ND PERS PEP.
And Mr. Chairman, my motion stands
Okay,
to approve.
and to approve the ratification.
Second.
Second, thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Engen.
Aye.
Cosgrove.
Aye.
Capitano.
Aye.
Lynn.
Aye. Motion is approved. And that is it. Is there any further any stuff you want to chat about there, Sean?
All right, I think I babbled long enough. We're done.
Okay, thank you. Yep, go ahead.
Sure. So we're down the road on the State Plaza, at least the building, and having a conversation with SD Plus this week actually.
Okay.
So right now, I don't think we don't have a location, so
Okay.
that
And
needs to be.
all right. The location of the Ticket Plaza. Are we in a position to vote on? We were waiting for more information from SP Plus, I believe, from the last meeting.
Yeah, I don't think you've gotten it yet.
Okay.
So-
So we'll put it on the as an item on the next meeting,
Yep.
and we'll vote on that.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else? Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.